You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Well, John Rubino is with us. You take a break and you think the world is going to take a break with you, but the world keeps going on. John, yen, what the heck is going on there?
Hey, Kerry. Hey, I should stop by apologizing in advance, or start by apologizing in advance here. I've got dogs here, so you might hear them barking at some point. Sorry about that if they do.
Oh, we're dog lovers.
Yeah, okay. Everybody is, I would think. They're good guys, dogs. But the yen is now the big story. Remember a couple of weeks ago, it was the British pound, and before that, it was the euro, and now the yen is turning into a pretty big story. And all of these things are potentially systemically really dangerous. But the story with the yen is that for the past, it's going on 30 years now, the Japanese government has been borrowing huge amounts of money at the federal level, and then using it to finance growth programs, infrastructure, things like that. And they build up an amount of debt that's just unearthly. This is more debt per capita at the government level than any country has ever taken on. And it's been okay for the longest time because they didn't have any kind of inflation. So it was a low inflation country, made their currency fairly attractive, and that allowed them to keep on taking debt at extremely low interest rates. That's changing now. Japan, along with everybody else, is experiencing actual inflation. And the yen is tanking, forcing the government to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars to try to support the currency, which is exacerbating inflation and threatening kind of a doom loop where rising inflation because of all this new money creation destabilizes the currency, leading to more money creation, and there's no way out of it. It could be that the yen is the currency to collapse and set off all the other dominoes that blows up the fiat currency system. We will see. There's no guarantee that any potential catalyst is going to be the catalyst, but Japan's currency blowing up is a very good example of one that could take down the rest of the system.
There's so many threats coming. Look what's happening to the yuan also. That's getting hit pretty hard. And, that China is the only major economy that's cutting rates while everyone else is raising them.
Yeah, Japan was keeping their rates stable while everyone else was raising them. And China is cutting rates. Well, China blew up the biggest financial bubble in human history. It doesn't really get characterized that way a lot in the press, but they basically quintupled their debt to generate the mother of all real estate bubbles, and that pulled their economy out of the Great Recession. But now a lot of that debt is going bad. They built things that never should have been built. They borrowed a ton of money for real estate that people don't want anymore and can't afford anymore. So they're gigantic real estate companies are starting to go bust, and the government's having to step in and bail them out. So it's the same kind of doom loop that Japan is looking at, but with different players. The key similarities are that something's blowing up. The government has to create a lot of new currency to keep it from just taking down the rest of the economy, but that affects the currency, and so the yuan is falling now, and it's not clear how they stop it. See that? Kerry, I think it's finally happening. The stuff you and I have been talking about forever, and we were this stop clock that might be right one time, and it's time for the gloom and doom stop clock maybe to be right. It could be that this is the unraveling of the system that never should have existed in the first place, but and certainly never should have grown to the size that it's grown to. And maybe this is it. Maybe in the next couple of years, this whole thing unravels.
Hey, well, somebody I know once wrote a book about this called The Money Bubble, right?
Yep, the money bubble. And it was named that because basically previous bubbles have been sector specific, junk bonds, tech stocks, something like that. And this current bubble is everything to do with money. In other words, all the major currencies, all the bonds based on those currencies, all the stocks that are going up because these currencies are being created at record, all of those things are going to crash if the system stops just create. In other words, if the Ponzi scheme loses its ever increasing stream of new money, then it collapses. And we've created a gigantic worldwide Ponzi scheme based on all these fiat currencies. When central banks can no longer create new currency with impunity, because doing so makes their currencies plunge in value, then it's game over. And we're seeing country after country where that is the case now. So yeah, very big, very interesting stuff going on out there. And it should terrify everybody. Even if you're a gold bug and you're really well positioned for it, you should still be horrified by what's happening and be desperately trying to protect yourself right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's totally nuts, but we always knew this day was going to come, John, and here we are. Well, then you got ocean shipping costs declined 84%. I mean, that's like a huge decline. You got natural gas in Europe. They got so much of it now, stocking up for the eventual Russian cutoff that's gone negative. And like our oil went negative a little more than a year and a half ago. These markets are not functioning properly.
Well, everything spiked, and maybe into like June of last year. Okay, we had commodity inflation that was just epic, and then everything started to roll over. So right now, a lot of industrial commodities and agricultural commodities are down for the year. And so that means there's zero inflation in the commodity space right now. Used cars are also down. Houses are down. So it's hard to see how we have inflation going forward. Much more likely we have deflation and a gigantic crash, which is, that's the script too. Finally, a gigantic bubble bursts, and the bursting of that bubble is so horrendous and so systemically dangerous that the central banks of the world just give up on trying to control inflation. They will create as much new currency as they need to this time around, and that will blow up the major currencies. So, the next phase of the script is starting to play out. And if 3 months from now, people are talking about how deep will the recession be, how much further will used car prices and house prices go, then we're there. Then the central banks are going to get ready to capitulate, or they will be capitulating by that time. Interest rates will be being pushed back down, and the currencies of the world are going to suffer dramatically. So, I think the gold bug thesis is finally here too, because if there's ever a scenario where you want to hold precious metals, that's the one. Where central banks give up for the last time, and everybody realizes that they'll never be able to tighten again. That's the day you want. You want a trunk load of silver coins in your car that you can drive to your safe deposit box or whatever. And hopefully a lot of your listeners are in that place right now.
Your vault or your hole in the ground or whatever, right?
Wherever. Don't tell anybody except one person you trust, and never ride in the same car with them again.
Definitely not. Hey, what about U.S. credit card delinquencies? They're like jumping off the charts now.
Well, see, that's another example of a slowing economy. We after the stimmy checks ran out, Americans kept on spending because that's what we do, and they just maxed out their credit cards in order to pay their rent and their car loans and keep their kids in private school and maintain that mortgage on the 4,000 square foot house. And now they basically run out of free credit that way, and so either they're going to miss some payments, and their credit card interest rates are going to go up into the 20s. Which is that would just blow up your life, right? If you've got a lot of credit card debt at teaser rates, and then all of a sudden it's something that is 1/5 of your entire balance having to be paid just in interest every year. And that's what's happening to a lot of people. So they're having to scale way back, and in a lot of cases, sell their cars. That's why car prices are starting to roll over, because all of a sudden the supply of used cars out there is ballooning. And same thing with houses. If you could, if you bought a $500,000 house at a 2.5% mortgage rate a year or two ago, and you come back to that same house and want to sell it and you want to get your $500,000 out of it. Well, the person you sell it to now has to take on a 6 or 7% mortgage, which means they need you, assuming they have the same amount of money as you had, they need you to cut that price to like 350 on your house.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a lot of deals like that where the house went up and up and up for 20 or 30 years, and then all of a sudden it gives back half those gains in the next sale. And what is that going to do to the finances of the sellers who thought they had a $500,000 check coming, and now they don't even have enough to cover their mortgage, so they're underwater, but they have no choice but to sell because their credit cards are maxed out and they don't have any other. It's going to be one of those situations across the board, across the country, and when that becomes apparent, the markets are going to react accordingly, I think.
The reversed wealth effect, right?
Yes,
that's
exactly
your
it.
house price goes down, you're not feeling quite so rich, so you're not buying the new cars, you're not buying the new Tesla, and where's that going to leave Tesla?
Speaking of Tesla, its stock price is tanking. Not long after I closed out my put options because they were running out of time. Damn, that illustrates the danger of shorting things with puts, because in a way it's really convenient and simple and fairly cheap because you don't have to risk the entire price of the thing you're shorting, but they have time limits. And if you are right but early,
the wrong time,
yes, you can lose everything that you put into your options. So I had that not completely happen, but I had to take a loss on my Tesla shorts. Because the options started going from long dated options to kind of short dated options when they can just vaporize. So yeah, that's living learn. I had some of those with S&P 500 shorts too, where I got in too early and the options were just going to expire worthless. So I sold them for a pittance. So
hard to time the market, even for professionals, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
All right. Well, hey, lesson learned, right?
Yeah. Well, life is a series of lessons that you have to learn.
That's it, for sure. Hey, so what about what's happening in Russia and China? Russia's warning about a dirty bomb. Looks like Xi is busy purging all of his potential opponents.
Just the geopolitics in an otherwise normal world would be enough to terrify a rational person. But yeah, Russia is, they picked up word that there was going to be some kind of a false flag dirty bomb. In other words, a radioactive bomb set off in Kiev or someplace. And then Russia would be blamed for it. NATO would use that as an excuse to ramp up their involvement in Ukraine, and World War III, here we go, And so, first of all, you never know what's happening out there because everybody's lying. And at the same time, the US and the West, as are most other countries, are really comfortable using false flags, and they have a history of doing it. So it's completely believable that we have planned something like this as a contingency if it looked like it wasn't going to work out.
Really?
In other words, if Russia wasn't going to be broken by this whole manufactured war. So I don't know. I just hope we keep our heads through all this, but I don't see the people in charge of the U.S. government doing that right now. They want a war. They literally want a war
that way.
with a nuclear power. It's incredible. It's just astounding that that's something that could be an opinion of the people in charge of a country. What do they think? Do they think that? Is this Dr. Strangelove, where they're the ones who survive? They've made their plans. They've got a bunker stocked with 18-year-old girls.
Seems like it.
And that's really the only explanation, because it's not clear how they think they're going to be the ones who survive, and their kids aren't going to be incinerated and stuff, and their grandkids. You would think you would be focused on your grandkids in a situation like that, and that you would.
Oh.
Yeah, and that you would want to keep them safe first and foremost, and your policy ideas would flow from that, but apparently not. We have insane people in charge of the country.
Yeah, that we do, and they've been insane for a while. That's for sure. Well, hey, ignorance got us into this mess. Ignorance will get us out, right, John?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Goldterra Resource Corp is a gold exploration company that has assembled a highly prospective district-scale land position on the doorstep of the city of Yellowknife in Canada's Northwest Territories. Goldterra is currently focused on expanding and delineating gold resources at the company's Yellowknife City Gold Project, with a goal of discovering over 5 million ounces. With ready access to infrastructure and multiple high-grade gold discoveries, Goldterra is on track to re-establishing Yellowknife as one of the premier gold mining districts in Canada. Goldterra trades as YGT in Toronto and YGTFF on the OTC. For more information, go to goldterracorp.com. That's goldterracorp.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
I only wish I was optimistic about this, Kerry, but I can't say anything reassuring about this because the people in charge are just, they're bad and they're stupid.
Yes.
And that's a horrible combination to have absolute power, and that's what it is, though.
Mm-hmm. Certainly is. Certainly is. So what is Joe Sixpack and Steve Chardonnay to do here? Just party till it's like it's 1999, and what can you do about it?
Well, we do have an election coming up, and you can vote for people who are adamant about peace. But that's, banking on U.S. elections is just it's grabbing at straws right now because we don't know who's cheating in what way and who's lying. It's I don't know. I don't think there's anything else to do. I mean, if enough people were paying attention, we could have some massive anti-war protests. But it seems like the majority of people are still paying attention to MSNBC and CNN, and to an extent Fox, where war is okay. We need to do the right thing and protect blah, blah, blah.
The military-industrial complex loves it, right?
Well, they're making money on this, yeah. And that's the thing. Oh, there go the dogs. See, we got most of the way through this before they started barking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you don't know, man. I don't know what's going to be, but it certainly is interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we survive this, we make a lot of money on our precious metals investments, and there may be a day when that's some consolation. And it's certainly, we still should be trying to manage our money for the coming crisis, but it's just that a financial crisis can actually be kind of fun because it's not. No cities are blowing up or anything like that. The geopolitics takes all the fun out of it because that's a whole different thing. It's a whole different crisis, and we are dumb enough to have gotten ourselves into something that could literally end with missiles blowing up major U.S. cities. Yeah, I'm astounded. It's astounding that we could let this happen.
That is amazing. I can't even believe it, but. This is the finite wisdom of our leadership out there. That's for sure. Hey, on a brighter note, the new Prime Minister of England is a Goldman alumnus.
Well, that should be a new experience, right? Having a guy from Wall Street running a major country. Yeah. And I wonder if he likes central bank digital currencies. Actually, I don't wonder. I saw a video of him talking them up. He's totally gung-ho for a digital pound sterling. Yeah.
That's great.
Because he doesn't know enough about how his citizens are spending their money and what they're doing, and this will help him put that final brick in the wall of surveillance where they know everything that everybody's doing and can control it by telling you what you can and can't buy. So,
well, you can never have enough information on your citizens, right?
Oh, yes, that's absolutely right. Because when there's always some crucial piece of information that they may not have that is the key to them being able to coerce us into doing exactly the right thing. So,
hey, and we're fighting the war on terror. Don't forget that.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, absolutely. Because there's
the war on drugs.
Yeah,
the war on war. I mean, what aren't we at war with, John?
Yeah, well, that's what countries do when they screw up their internal systems. They look abroad for enemies. And if they can find a scary enough enemy, then everybody rallies around even an incompetent president. And that's basically what we're doing right now.
Hey, so elections here. We should talk about it, even though we don't really talk politics, because this is a family show and we don't want to upset people. but it looks like it's going to be a red tsunami. And then they're saying they don't want to send Ukraine any more money, so they're trying to send them another $50 billion with a lame duck Congress. But it looks like a lot. What I find interesting about it, forget the political affiliations aside, is that so many races that appeared to be very safe, secure seats are no longer. And there's a lot of incumbents facing eviction from their cushy lifestyle here. So I guess they'll all have to become lobbyists because they're not going to be in Capitol Hill much longer. So it could be a wave election. But what's interesting is states like Oregon, New York, states that are as blue as they possibly can be, we could see them shifting their voting patterns. Now, I'm not rooting for it one way or the other because it's really not going to matter, in my opinion. And it's like, you know what it's like, John? It's like the Titanic has hit the iceberg, and all these people have woken up that the ship is sinking, and they're upset because the cello is out of tune as the band plays on. They just can't deal with that cello being out of tune.
Well, two things about that. One is that it's no surprise that these weird social issues have popped up at the same time as all the financial systems of the world have been corrupted, because that's a way of distracting us. If we're out in the streets battling over trannies using junior high girl bathrooms or something like that, or how long a pregnancy can go on before it can be aborted. If we're battling over things like that, then we don't realize that the actual battle is class-based, and a handful of incredibly rich people are just draining the rest of us dry. And we should be working together. Left and right, working class people should be banding together and storming the castle, but they're using these things to divide us, and they're very successful at it. Now, these coming up elections are really interesting on two levels. One is that it's midterm elections normally go against the incumbent party. They lose a lot of seats in Congress. That's just how that works, because the guys in charge get blamed for everything that goes wrong. This time around, there are an incredible number of things going wrong, and that's setting the stage for something really serious electorally. And in other words, like you said, a lot of places where you wouldn't expect the Republicans to win, they're probably going to win. I think the Arizona races are very interesting. Their governor and Senate races there had Republican candidates who looked non-viable.
Yeah.
And they both might win, So there's a lot of other states where things like that are happening, where people who didn't look like they were very good candidates on the Republican side are still going to win, and that's a very big deal. And
yes,
trusting the Republicans to make things right is not something you really want to do. But a lot of them do seem to be anti-war, and the question is that just a talking point that allows them to run against the incumbents, or do they actually mean it? Are they actually a bunch of Tulsi Gabbards out there who sincerely want to stop the never-ending wars? And you know what? If they mean it, if they come out and they defund Ukraine and pull us out of a lot of other places, I'll be a Republican. If they keep my kids from being incinerated, I will be a Republican for the rest of my life. Okay, so that's what they can do. They can win this one vote from me forever if they just stop these wars right this minute, and my kids survive.
From your mouth. And whatever you like about the former occupant of the White House, we didn't get into any new wars while he was in there for 4 years, and that was a first. But one other thing I'd like to just point out from a political historian standpoint, I know how much you're into history. So all states that are red now were once blue, and all states that were blue were once red. All right, going back in history, and they've had several shifts over the years. I'll give you an example of California used to elect Republicans. New York used to elect Republicans. New Jersey did. Connecticut did. So there are generational shifts that take place in voting patterns. So I'm looking at it strictly from a voting pattern standpoint, and it looks like we might be on the verge of one of those now. Just like Florida was once solid blue. I mean, they always elected Democrats for many, many years. And the South was solidly Democratic going back to the Civil War, and that shifted. And in our little narrow focus, our fixed viewpoint of the world, we just assume that political inclinations, patterns, just continue on, extrapolate them forward, and that will eliminate the need for any major analysis. But every now and then, stuff changes, and for different reasons it changes. At one point, it was slavery. At another point, it was the tariff. It just changes. Then it was welfare. Now it looks like we're coming back to crime and declining the country in decline. A lot of things can cause these generational shifts, and I think we're in the midst of one. So it's fascinating to watch from that standpoint.
Well, here's the dynamic. Trump came along as a populist, and he spoke the language of working people. In other words, a handful of rich people are ripping you off. I will get back what's yours. That's the populist pitch. And it worked brilliantly with people who, might traditionally be Democrat voters. In other words, working class white people, a lot of whom vote Democrat. Mm-hmm. He got them all, and he got a bunch of Latinos and other people who get that they're being ripped off by an aristocracy. So the Republicans, they didn't completely learn that lesson, but they kind of sort of shifted their rhetoric to appeal to working people instead of corporate CEOs like they normally do, and it's working. It's working in a lot of places. You're seeing a big shift in the Latino vote towards Republicans, which is just shocking the Democrats. They thought that was a vote that they had locked down. And the reason for that is that the Republicans now are in favor of parental rights with these social issues. They want to get jobs back into America. They're not the free traders they used to be. And they're in favor of cracking down on crime, because a lot of working class people live in crime-ridden areas. And they want the cops to take the shoplifters and the muggers and just put them somewhere else or shoot them, And the Republicans are kind of open to those ideas. Yeah, they're open to those options. So there's a shift in the voter profile going on right now. And man, if the Republicans lock down the working class, they've got a couple of decades of ruling this country ahead of them. And for the right reason, because we should be focused on class issues. We should be focusing on increasing the amount of wealth, the relative amount of wealth of working people versus the handful of the truly rich. I would never trust Republicans to actually do the right thing, but if they saw it in their interest to be populists and actually walk that walk, that would be awesome. I'd love to see it. Totally
agree with you. And, it's just fascinating to see this. Hey, so how they're always talking about wanting to get the government out of your bedroom? Well, daylight savings time is coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to fall back again. Now, there's nothing more personal in your life than your bedroom, than your alarm clock. So how about if the government takes its hands off of your alarm clock, gets out of your bedroom altogether, and just leaves you alone? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. That I don't know. I very seldom know what time it is anyhow.
All right. Well, that's it for this week, John. Thanks so much for coming by. We know you got all these challenges in life, like all of us. Good luck, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.